Hey, it's Tim.
And it's Amy from GoWithLess. We're so glad that you're here with us today. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the possibility of us and RVing. We have so many comments on so many videos that suggest over and over again from our viewers that we should look into an RV. So we want to talk about that in today's video. For those who don't know us, we did sell our house back in January. We have been fired, financial independence, retired early. We've been fired since 2015, but without a home since January. So we are now full-time on the road. And what are we talking about here about RVs?
So Amy said we're going to talk about the possibility of us being in an RV. I'm going to say that possibility is 0%. So we have no desire to be in an RV, at least right now. So there's nothing wrong with the RV lifestyle, but we're going to list some of the reasons that we think it's just not for us at the moment. And the biggest of those is going to be expense. So we believe that what we're doing now with our current lifestyle, with house sitting and travel hacking, whether that's points and miles at hotels or points and miles that we use on a cruise or whatever, per night we can spend less in our using what we're doing right now. We're spending less doing that than we would if we were actually in an RV. We'll explain some of the reasoning behind that. And so the first and foremost is going to be the fact that we would have to purchase an RV or rent one, which would even be crazy expensive. But purchasing an RV is going to be tens of thousands of dollars, whether we actually plus, and so up to $100,000+ for a really, really nice RV. And so we would also potentially, if we bought a $10,000 RV, we'd probably have to upgrade our car to make sure that we had a car that's going to be able to pull that RV. And so the upfront investment in an RV is something that we just wouldn't want to sign up for. So that cost alone is really a deterrent for us. And then there's just tons of ongoing costs. But that upfront cost is something that certainly is something that we don't want to own this thing. The other thing with owning stuff, every time you own something, you have to insure it, you have to take care of it, you have to fix it. And so we have no desire to have this asset in our life, if you want to call an RV an asset that seems to be depreciating, something that we're going to have to deal with and maintain and fix all the time. And even we have friends that actually own brand new RVs that are spending tons of time just working on their new RV. We don't want anything to do with that.
It does sound like a fun way of life, though. They enjoy it. So we're not disparaging the RV life in the slightest. Our friends love it. This is just why it's not for us. Now, when Tim talks about the maintenance costs, we have a 12-year-old car still, and it was in storage for 2 months already of 2020. So just since the beginning of 2020, we have paid for it to be in the shop. Is it twice? We had a new battery. We had 2 flat tires that needed to be dealt with at a shop.
So with anything, and this isn't just our RVs, it's whether you own a home, whether you own a car, there's just this ongoing maintenance element of fixing and repairing, and that's something that we were happy to walk away from when we sold our home, and just a reason that, just one other reason among many that we wouldn't want to have an RV in our life. Also, gas is very expensive when you have an RV. So if you're pulling an RV around the country, the gas for your truck or whatever you're going to be using to tow that RV, or if you have a Class A and you're actually driving this thing, I've heard that mileage can be as little as like 8 miles per gallon or something ridiculous like that. And the highest is going to be, I think, in the 20s. And so gas is going to be very expensive if you own an RV. And then insuring the RV is also going to be something you'd have to consider. And again, a very pricey proposition in the scope versus what we're currently doing.
And then you also have to park the RV somewhere while you're living in it. So that is $20, $30, $40 a night. We are probably not huge boondock sort of people. We like to be near cities and near the action. So I'm not thinking that we're going to be getting any kind of a deal near a nice city for under $40, but there is a nightly fee to consider as well.
Yeah, and so I know it does sound like these are all going to be negatives. And so this is something we have legitimately considered and something that I think that we would enjoy. But again, I think the expense is the overwhelming thing that just really makes it so this doesn't make sense for us. So, Amy, what are we paying right now? So year to date, we've been on the road for basically, as of today, we've been on the road for 6 months. And what's our nightly expense for?
And we're paid up through, it is been 6 months, but we're paid up for the whole next month of July. So all the way through July, we have spent roughly $3,000 on accommodations for 7 entire months, thanks to things like Tim mentioned, house sitting, travel hacking, things like that, a cruise and using our points and miles. But we've also paid for some Airbnbs and things like that. So our nightly rate for the first 7 months on average is under $20 a night all in, and we have a great situation that we've had really nice places that we've stayed in.
Yep. So it'd be sort of hard to be less than that if we were in an RV. So again, when you consider the investment, all the things that we just talked about. So again, money is the number one reason we think RVs aren't for us.
Not only has it been on average less than $20 a night for us, when we're looking at an Airbnb in the very high cost of living United States, we're looking at something around $1,500 a month or so. And that's going to be under, I don't know, it's about $40, $50 a night. All in at an Airbnb. We don't have to deal with any maintenance or any property taxes or any insurance on that home, all of that. So it's not like we're spending an enormous amount of money on our nightly rate. And then you factor in that we have longer house sits thrown in there, and that brings our average down over time. So I'm excited to see what our nightly rate looks like over years, but for now it's looking great.
Yeah, and so the other thing with an RV is you are relatively space constrained, and so basically whatever you sign up for, that's what you're going to live with for the next amount of time that you're going to be in this thing. And so whatever you can put in it are the things that you're going to be traveling with. And so it's like almost like a tiny home that you can pull behind your truck, or even if you own a big Class A that you're driving, these things are relatively small. And so the amount of space just doesn't seem like it'd be a fit for what we're looking for. For the same reason, tiny homes are out of the picture for us. So oftentimes our viewers will suggest, well, you really need to own a place. You need a place where you can just set down roots, and a tiny home would be a great idea. And for the same reason that we're not looking at an RV, it would be the same reason that we're not looking at a tiny home, and that we just want a little bit more space to store the small amount of stuff that we have and just sort of stretch out. So there's just something about the Airbnb. Even a hotel room is sometimes larger, and we're not spending a lot of time in hotel rooms. We're spending time in Airbnbs, which are we're looking for one bedrooms typically. So we just want a little bit more space than an RV would offer.
And I think this is almost as big as expense, but we are not planning to be in the United States for very long. As soon as it's okay to travel, our intent is to be out of the United States from 10 to 11 months every single year. And it's not as though we're just going to be in South America for 5 years. We're going to be going to Southeast Asia for a winter, and then maybe Eastern Europe for the summer, and then maybe the Iberian Peninsula for the fall. And off we go back to different parts of Asia and Australia and South America and Latin America and all over the place. So some people do bring their RVs. It seems kind of nuts, but I don't know that it makes sense with the kind of lifestyle that we're going to be leading. I know for us, it definitely doesn't make sense to be driving an RV. For us, that does not make sense all around the world. But our intent is to be out of the United States. Yep. Most of the time.
So it seems like that would also be, if you did ship your RV from continent to continent to continent, that seems like if you really wanted to have this as a part of what you're doing, that again would be a very expensive proposition. It would also limit your flexibility, and that's going to be the next thing that we talk about in terms of one of the reasons we wouldn't want to be RVing. And so if you own an RV, oftentimes, let's say you had a Class A and this bus you're just driving around, I guess you could pull a car behind it that you're going to tool around in when you get to a specific location. But if you don't have a car that you're pulling behind your Class A RV, it's going to be kind of hard to go to the grocery store. Or if you have a fifth wheel and you have a truck that you drive, I guess you can sort of tool around in a truck once you get to town and get your RV sort of set up. But there's just some flexibility. There's some limitations in terms of the places you can go. So if you want to be in Manhattan, you're not going to pull your RV into Manhattan and park it, and then it just doesn't work that way. So there are limitations in flexibility that you have to walk away from if you want this RV lifestyle. We really like city environments, and so it'd be difficult for us. Like I said, we would have to park the RV out somewhere in some rural situation and take the train in if that's something we wanted to experience. And if we wanted to spend the night in the city, then we're going to have to be footing the bill for spending the night in the city. So flexibility is something that we also think that we would have to walk away from if we had this RV life. So as it is right now with our car, we can just pull up to our Airbnb. We can go around town just like we live here. So we get a lot of flexibility from owning a car and driving around with our car. We love having our car, but having this huge home that we're basically pulling behind our car would limit our flexibility.
And we did a video last week that talked about the idea that it's not just that we like to get settled in. I think there were some interesting comments that made it sound like we're just into slow travel and getting settled. I think that it was a little beyond that actually for us. And everyone is individual. So we're just looking at living in a place for 6 weeks, and that's about it. And we're finding that 6 weeks is about our sweet spot. And the idea that it takes us about 10 days to 2 weeks to get settled in. And it's not a negative that we're taking that long of a time to us. So we enjoy the discovery process and finding the new walks and doing all the new things and understanding, I don't know, what there is to do in a place and the best restaurants and stuff like that. So we love that. What I think we really need to realize from our last week's video is that we just need to give ourselves the time to do that. So we shouldn't have expectations that we're going to be just settled in on the second day of a stay or even the seventh day of a stay, because it takes a little bit longer to really get in there. And again, our spot, I think we're finding to do that is about 10 to 14 days.
Yeah, I think like we said, and we've said again and again and again, we have this addiction to new. And that 2 weeks of getting used to a place is actually, it's kind of exciting. So it's not like this is a negative that it takes 2 weeks to adjust to a place. We like that adjustment period almost as much as we like the after we're adjusted period. It's just something that is just something that we realize that we have to do to sort of get in a place and feel like we're comfortable in a place as we have this adjustment period. We enjoy that as well. And then the final thing that really I think is for me one of the biggest negatives about being having an RV is the fact that I would have to drive this thing around. I'm our driver. And I'd have no desire to drive around a huge truck, pulling something behind it that I can't see around. And so I don't like to drive at all, even though I'm our driver. And so having some huge thing that I think I'd probably be in an accident every other week if we had this huge thing that we were pulling behind our car or this huge thing that I was driving, just because I think they're hard to see out of. And so, at least that's been my experience when I've been in them. They seem like they're very challenging.
Actually, you owned an RV.
I did.
Before we met.
I had a Jeep, and I pulled this small. I can't remember the dimensions of it, but this small little pull behind RV behind my Jeep, and I couldn't see behind that thing. And so I'm sure there's technology now that makes this easier to see around you. But I still I don't have any desire to be pulling some huge trailer behind my car or driving some huge bus-like thing. I'm just primarily because maybe it's my skill level. I think I'm prone to accidents, and that would be surely a disaster if I signed up for that.
It sounds ridiculous that you're our driver with what you've just said.
There you go. Well, maybe you should drive.
Well, here's the thing: is I'm the navigator, so I have a map in my head, and generally, I even if I haven't been to a place, I have an uncanny ability to have the layout of the land in my head. And between that and GPS, I'm like a navigator extraordinaire. So that makes me the passenger. And I even offer to drive. Tim wants to do it. So I think you're a martyr.
I don't want to drive an RV. Maybe so. That's right.
But just driving the car,
maybe
period.
I really like to complain. And so I want to complain about Amy's navigation. That's why I drive.
It's not bad.
Your navigation is great, actually. Amy is a great navigator. I will give her that 100%. I am, not only am I challenged when it comes to driving, but I'm also just navigationally challenged. I never know where I am, so thank goodness for a GPS. So again, back to this 2 weeks when we get to a place. Thank goodness we have those 2 weeks so that I can sort of get my bearings. It takes me at least 2 weeks to figure out where I am. And I still don't know where I am here in Asheville, so it's whatever. We're working on it.
It's part of the adventure.
It's part of the adventure.
Okay, well, if you know our videos, you know that next week is going to be our June spending wrap-up. We have had a lot of wacky things come up in our spending in June, so we're excited to review that ourselves. We're excited to share it with our audience, so we hope you'll subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and we'll see you back here, I hope, on Wednesday.
Adios.